And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Greetings, I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Aviation Weather Outlook on this Wednesday, December 11th, 2024. And we continue to watch an area of low pressure back out here toward the central portion of the Bering Sea. A frontal system is pulling up in through the Gulf with a secondary low that'll be developing early Thursday, pulling then back toward the north and west as we go into Thursday night and Friday. Now, there is enough instability near and south of this low in front that there could be a few flashes of lightning, rumbles of thunder down here across areas of the central Gulf. Another spot between the eastern and central Aleutians on the Pacific side. And then we have widespread IFR conditions along this front that extend from the southern central panhandle, northern Gulf, east side of the Kenai, Prince William Sound, up over the Alaska Range into areas of the southwest interior, and then back out there in the central Bering for Thursday morning. But more importantly, there's a blizzard warning that goes into effect this Wednesday mid-afternoon, first along eastern areas of the Beaufort Sea coast, and then those strong winds will work their way westward tonight, and as a result we expect blizzard or near blizzard conditions along the entire length here of the Arctic coast. Winds could gust as high as 60-65 miles an hour, especially around Deadhorse there between Kaktovik and New Exit, with near zero visibility. So again, this area here we'll see a considerable amount of blowing snow, drifting snow as a result of these strong northeast to east winds as a result of high pressure up in the Arctic Ocean and general lower pressure here out over southern parts of the state and the Gulf. Into Thursday afternoon, still could be a rumble of thunder over the northeastern portion of the Gulf, and some areas of IFR holding around Ketchikan up toward Hyder in the southeast panhandle. Southeast mainland, what's going to happen too is we're having moisture that's lifting northward with an old frontal boundary, and as that encounters the Alaska Range and gets to the other side, there's going to be a band of light to occasionally moderate snow set up across this area of the interior along and north of the Alaska Range for especially Thursday afternoon through Friday. Several inches of snow could fall in some locations of the Tanana Valley. Fairbanks at least 2 to 4 inches, with maybe heavier snowfall up along some of the higher terrain around Fairbanks and extending out here into areas even back out toward the Yukon Valley. And then on Friday morning, we still have IFR conditions due to poor visibility, due to strong winds blowing, drifting snow. And then areas right here, they're light to occasionally moderate snow. 40-mile gold country, say Eagle down to Northway, cross and along the north side of the Alaska Range, Nenana, and pushing back toward McGrath and even in toward maybe Anvik there on the Yukon River. Widespread MVFR conditions along the Gulf Coast and Panhandle up through Cook Inlet, also down through the Bering Strait. And then we have another band of IFR conditions out here over the Bering, where there's a stronger low coming up through the western Aleutians. The front with it will have a band of precipitation, gusty winds. So there are IFR conditions there. And then Friday afternoon, we still have those IFR conditions across the interior as a result of this overrunning precipitation coming up in through along and north of the Alaska Range. Mainly this is going to be some light to occasionally moderate snow, lower ceilings visibilities. There's going to be a backdoor cold front push in this weekend from Canada that's going to create a little batch of Arctic air that just quickly moves across the mainland from east to west Saturday into Sunday. And then out here along the northwest coast, from around Cape Lisburne up to Utqiagvik, we could still see some IFR conditions lingering into Friday afternoon, though conditions should start to improve along areas toward Kaktovik and the Canadian Arctic coast. And then out here over the Gulf, that low with the frontal system extending from around St. Matthew down up into the Alaska Peninsula, there will be a band of IFR conditions. And there's going to be yet another low come up out of the North Pacific up into the western Aleutians. It's actually stronger than this one as we go through the course of the weekend. So looking at pass conditions, Anaktuvik Pass, generally VFR, but you just get on the other side of the north entrance, MVFR, and if you travel, You're not going to be able to fly further north along the north slope toward the Arctic coast. You're going to have IFR conditions and blizzard or near blizzard conditions. Same thing, Adigan Pass. VFR conditions generally through the pass. You pop out near the north entrance, MVFR, and if you could fly further north to the Arctic coast, you're going to encounter IFR conditions and blizzard conditions. Lake Clark, Merrill, west arm of the Alaska Range, kind of socked in with IFR conditions. We have this old frontal boundary kind of pushing slowly through that area, so lower ceilings, visibilities, even a little bit of precipitation. Rainy Pass, also IFR conditions. And then as we round up through Windy Pass, Central Alaska Range, VFR becoming MVFR on Thursday. Same thing, Isabel Pass. VFR early for a brief time, becoming MVFR. Mentasta Pass, we'll see enough moisture coming up where it'll be IFR by afternoon and certainly evening. And then Tanita Pass, we're expecting generally MVFR conditions during the day Thursday, as will be the case around Portage Pass, MVFR, and then across the northern panhandle, Chilkoot and White, we'll see MVFR conditions prevail throughout the day Thursday. Looking at the freezing levels coming Thursday morning, we had that initial intrusion of above freezing temperatures all the way up to Point Hope because of a couple of storm systems that worked their way, that pushed that warmer air northward. That's modified and retreated a little bit back south of the Bering Strait. We find freezing levels aloft 2,000 feet or higher over the northern Gulf and Panhandle. You have to go way down between Haida Gwaii and Vancouver Island to find surface levels aloft at 4,000 feet. So that initial warmer dome of air ridging has broken down. Nevertheless, that's allowing moisture to be transported northward. Not so much in the way of snow, Copper River Basin. It really doesn't come together until crossing the Alaska Range through this area of the interior is where the snow will break out. And of note, the freezing levels aloft are actually above 4,000 feet there, up around Point Hope and the Chukchi Sea, western part of the Brooks Range. So icing potential, we're looking at icing along areas of the coast above 8,000 feet as you get down toward Dixon Entrance. Otherwise, the Panhandle, central northern Panhandle along the Gulf Coast, southwest interior above 6,000 feet. Generally above 4,000 feet in through the Yukon Flats and back out here toward the eastern Bering. And then back out toward the western and central Aleutians, we find freezing levels a little higher, and the likelihood of any precipitation producing clouds above 6,000 feet, you could encounter some moderate icing. And looking at the jet stream pattern, winds are generally southeasterly across the mainland, 65-knot band, Alaska Range out over the northern Bering Sea up through the Bering Strait. You can see out ahead of that low we have a ridge, and this ridge has winds upwards of 100, 105 knots. And at 9,000 feet, winds relatively light over the mainland, though there are some stronger winds beginning to show up in mid-levels here along the Arctic coast. We have along the Aleutian chain southeast winds out there, the Alaska Peninsula, upwards of 50, 55 knots toward the Pribilofs. But here's where we find the stronger wind field. I'm going to step out of the way with that low, pushing into the western Aleutians, southwest corner of the Bering Sea, anywhere from 45 to 75 knot winds. And then at 3,000 feet, you can see that low out there. It's a strong low with winds at 3,000 feet in excess of 50 to 70 knots from areas of the western central Aleutians out over the North Pacific. And then there's a pocket of stronger winds around the Pribilofs that are upwards of 50 to 55 knots, but more impressively here along the Arctic coast, winds 3,000 feet above the surface, anywhere from 50 to 60 knots out of the east. And of course, that's where that blizzard warning is in effect through Friday afternoon. Surface to 4,000 feet, there could be moderate turbulence, typically right along the Arctic coast. You don't get quite the bumpiness that you get in some of the mountainous terrain here in southern areas or out over the Aleutians, but nevertheless there could be some moderate turbulence. Again, though, flying is not going to be possible with those blizzard conditions up there along the Arctic coast. And then trailing out along the Alaska Peninsula into the Aleutians, generally we're looking at moderate turbulence, surface to 3 or surface to 4,000 feet. And as we get way out toward the western Aleutians, especially from around and west of Adak up through Shimei and Attu, there's the potential for some isolated severe turbulence from the surface to 3,000 feet on Thursday.